Level 1. Recruit. The academy smells like floor wax in synthetic fabric. You iron your uniform the night before, twice. You show up 15 minutes early because someone told you that showing up on time means you're late. You believe that. You believe everything right now. There are 43 of you in the class. You don't know yet that only 29 will make it through. You don't know yet which 29. You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about the badge. The instructors don't smile. That's the first thing you notice. They run you until your legs stop working, and then they tell you to keep running. They fail you on written tests for reasons that aren't written anywhere. They wake you up at 0400 because they can. You learn quickly. Understanding the rules isn't the goal. Compliance is the goal. You eat what they tell you. You sleep when they allow it. You answer with yes, sir, even when the answer is more complicated than that. Especially when it's more complicated than that. Someone in your cohort pushes back during a scenario exercise. Smart guy, criminology degree, dean's list. He asks why the protocol contradicts the statute. The instructor doesn't answer. He just looks at him. By Thursday, the guy is gone, and nobody talks about him. Not once. You file that away. You're not the smartest person here, you're not the fastest, but you notice things. You're quiet when others talk, you move when others freeze. In week 7, during a simulated domestic call, you de-escalate a scenario that 2 other recruits failed. The instructor says nothing to you directly, but he nods. Once. That nod is everything. You graduate on a Friday in November. You hold the badge in your hand for the first time, and it's heavier than you expected. You didn't expect that, the weight of it. Your family takes photos. Your mother cries. You'll forget this feeling later. You don't know that yet. Level 2. Patrol Officer. Your first partner is a 15-year veteran named Delaway. He doesn't ask about your scores. He doesn't ask where you're from or why you joined. On your first shift together, he hands you a coffee, pulls out of the lot, and says, "Forget everything they taught you." You think he's joking. He isn't. The streets have their own grammar. Your first month, you're all reaction. Radio crackles, you move. Someone screams, you run toward it. A teenager throws a bottle from a rooftop on Clement Street, and you chase him 4 blocks before Delaway calls you off. Calmly, like he knew from the beginning how it would end. Some hills aren't worth the fall, he says. You ask him what that means. He doesn't explain. The job is a rhythm. Traffic stops, domestics, 1057s, the same corner dealers rotating through the same cycle. Arrested, released, back on the corner, arrested again. You start to see patterns, the same faces, the same excuses, the same paperwork, slightly different dates, the machinery of it all. You're a gear in it. Some nights are quiet. Some nights a man bleeds out on a sidewalk and you hold pressure on the wound for 11 minutes until the ambulance arrives, and when they take him, you drive to a parking structure and sit in the car for a while. You don't call anyone. You just sit. You write your report, you go home. You don't talk about it at dinner. There's a code. Nobody explains the code directly, but you absorb it through proximity. You don't file reports that contradict what a senior officer already said. You don't make waves on your sergeant's overtime cases. You back your partner first and sort the details later. You're not compromised, not yet. You're just learning which questions not to ask. At the end of year 2, you get your first commendation, use of restraint during a mental health call. You talked a man off a ledge on the 4th floor of a parking structure. 22 minutes. His name was Gerald. You remember his hands, how badly they were shaking. You don't know if you helped him or if you just delayed something inevitable. You don't ask. Level 3. Field Training Officer. Now they give you the rookies. You're not old, 5 years in, but relative to them, you're ancient. They look at you like you used to look at Delaway. Hungry for shortcuts, desperate to prove themselves, completely unaware of what they don't know yet. Your job is to teach them the official version. You teach them the other version too.
quietly, between calls. Don't engage on Morrow Avenue past 2 a.m. unless you have backup confirmed. The DA's office won't touch anything from the 900 block without 2 corroborating sources. Don't waste your paperwork. Sergeant Nguyen runs his shift clean, eyes open. Sergeant Briggs doesn't, eyes elsewhere. Know who you're working under. Adjust accordingly. This isn't corruption, this is navigation. That's what you tell yourself. You watch your recruits make the same mistakes you made. The ones who last start to listen. The ones who don't start asking the wrong kinds of questions in the wrong kinds of rooms. You pull one of them aside after he files a use of force report that contradicts a senior officer's account. You don't tell him to change it. You ask him if he's certain about what he saw. He says yes. You tell him to be more certain than certain. He changes the report. You sleep fine that night. You've told yourself the story enough times now that the edges are smooth. Systems have friction. You reduce friction. That's the job. At year 6, you put in for detective. You're done being a gear. You want to be the one who turns it. Level 4, detective. No uniform. That's the first thing. You wear your own clothes and show your badge when it's time. Somehow that matters more than you expected. The detective bureau has a different pace, slower, more deliberate. You sit with cases for weeks, for months. You learn to read people the way you used to read traffic. The micro pauses, the eye movements, the tells. You sit across a table from a man who killed his business partner and let him talk for 2 hours about his alibi before you put a phone record in front of him and watch his face change. That feeling, when the case closes around someone, is unlike anything on patrol. You're good at this. The paperwork is meticulous. Your clearance rate in year 1 is the highest in the unit. The lieutenant notices. Your colleagues notice. Some of them are glad for you. Some of them are not. You learn who is who. The Detective Bureau has its own economy. Information is currency. Which informants are reliable? Which DAs will push a deal? Which judges are predictable on warrants? You build a network, quietly, deliberately. You trade information like it's paper money, not to exploit, you tell yourself, but to get things done. There are things you don't put in reports. Not big things, small elisions, a source you protect by leaving him unnamed, a timeline you smooth out because the actual order of events would create procedural complications without changing the outcome. A minor detail that would require 3 additional weeks of processing for a result you already know. You're not falsifying anything, you're just editing. Your marriage is strained by year 8. She says you're somewhere else even when you're in the room. You don't argue with her. She's right. You're running a wiretap in your head at every dinner table. You crack a homicide ring. 4 killings across 2 districts, same shooter, 17 months of work. The press calls it a landmark case. The DA shakes your hand. Your captain pulls you aside and says you're going places. You've heard that before. Now you believe it.
Level 5, Sergeant. You inherit 10 officers. Some of them are Delaware. Some of them are you at level 2. One of them is the kind of problem that never gets fired because he has seniority and union cover and a lieutenant who owes him a favor from 2019. You learn to manage around him. That's the job now, management. You don't work cases anymore. You oversee people who work cases. The distance between you and the actual work grows. You sit in more meetings. You review more paperwork. You translate the department's language downward and your unit's problems upward. You become a filter. The department has politics you didn't fully see from below. Budget cycles, the chief's priorities shifting with whoever the mayor is, pressure from the community board on use of force metrics, a reporter from the Tribune who keeps filing FOIA requests that make everyone 2 floors above you nervous. You learn what to say in writing. You learn what to say only in person. You run a tight shift. Your officers respect you, most of them. You're fair, you're direct, you back them when they deserve to be backed. When one of your guys crosses a line during a traffic stop and a complaint is filed, you investigate it yourself. The investigation takes 4 days. Your findings are that procedure was followed within acceptable parameters. His conduct was not quite acceptable, but you write what you write. He knows what you did for him. That's currency. You don't cash it now, you file it. The weight of the job has changed. It used to be physical, running, bleeding, adrenaline. Now it's ambient, a low hum behind everything. You stop sleeping through the night somewhere around year 11. Not dramatically, just you wake up at 3 a.m. and your mind is already working. You lie in the dark and run scenarios. That's what the job does. Eventually, you don't stop running scenarios. Level 6, Lieutenant. The office has a door. You close it often. At this rank, you are administration. You know that now. You stopped apologizing for it. The officers see you as management. Command sees you as operational. You serve both. You satisfy neither completely. You've made peace with that. You handle things that never get documented. A detective who's drinking, you route him to a different unit before it becomes a formal review. An allegation against an officer that came through unofficial channels. You assess whether it has legs before it reaches official intake. You're not burying it, you're triaging. That's the word you use. The distinction matters to you. A city council member calls about his nephew, a speeding case that somehow made it to your desk. You listen for 3 minutes, you explain the process, he thanks you. 3 weeks later, the departmental budget committee approves a line item that funds 2 new detective positions. You don't connect those things, you just note them both. You've known what leverage is for a long time. Now you're inside the system that runs on it. You have a prosecutor who calls you directly, a journalist you've cultivated, not manipulated, cultivated, a deputy chief who was your captain 11 years ago. You've built a quiet architecture of relationships, and the architecture holds weight. When a use of force incident in your district generates citywide attention, you write the official narrative. You don't lie in it. You present the facts in the order and with the emphasis that serves the department's ability to function. You've learned that institutions are fragile, and they require maintenance. That's the word, maintenance. You go home less than you used to. Your kids are teenagers now. They don't need you in the same way they did. Or maybe they do and you've rationalized the distance. You don't examine that too closely. You've gotten very good at not examining things too closely. Level 7, Captain. 240 offices. That's the number. That's what you're responsible for. Not their cases, their careers, their conduct, their performance metrics, their union grievances, their mental health crises, their misconduct investigations. The thing that used to be police work is now a substrate you manage from above. You understand things at this level that aren't visible from below. The department is a political entity. It always was, you knew that, but now you're inside the decision rooms, budget negotiations, internal affairs coordination, mayor's office briefings, city council public safety committees where you sit at a long table and answer questions in language designed to be accurate and unalarming simultaneously. You're good at this. That's the uncomfortable truth. The institutional fluency that you built year by year, it's valuable here. You translate between what's real and what can be communicated. That translation is a skill. An officer under your command shoots a man at a traffic stop. The man was unarmed. The situation is complex. The officer had reason to believe otherwise. The investigation will take time. The footage is ambiguous. Within 48 hours, there are protests outside headquarters. Within 72 hours, the mayor's office wants a statement. You work 18 hours straight on the response, not covering anything up, managing a sequence that, if left unmanaged, will destroy careers, expose the department, and end your own position before anything is proven either way. You protect the process. You tell yourself that's the same as protecting justice. You don't know anymore if it is. At this rank, you have very few friends left. People want things from you constantly, and the ones who don't want things are worried you want something from them. The social physics are exhausting.
You have a small circle, 2 or 3 people from early career who knew you before the architecture, and you guard those relationships carefully. Your phone rings at every hour. You answer it. That's the job now. You're always on. Level 8. Chief of Police. The city gave you a car. Not issued, assigned. A driver. You don't drive yourself anymore. There is a ceremony. The mayor shakes your hand for a long time in front of cameras and calls you a public servant. The word servant registers somewhere in the back of your mind, and you hold your expression steady. You give a speech. It's good. You wrote it at 1 a.m. sitting alone in your kitchen. You are now the department. Everything it does is yours. Every clearance rate, every use of force incident, every corruption case, every commendation, every crisis, it runs upward and lands on your desk. There are 412 sworn officers, and they all exist under your signature. The political pressure at this level is structural. The mayor doesn't tell you how to police. He tells you what the outcomes need to look like, and you figure out how to make the department produce them. You've learned to work within that. Everyone at this level has made that accommodation. You don't investigate anymore. You don't interview witnesses. You don't walk scenes. You read summaries of reports written by people who read reports written by other people. The direct line between you and the real work of the city is attenuated to almost nothing. You manage the image of a system that manages violence on behalf of a city that doesn't want to think about what that actually requires. The loneliness at this level is specific. You cannot be candid with your subordinates. Everything you say becomes policy. You cannot be candid with elected officials. They need you to be certain, and certainty is a performance. Your marriage survived, but barely, and what remains of it is functional. 2 people sharing a house and a history, and not much else. There are nights you walk through the building alone after midnight. The empty floors, the quiet dispatch room, the seal on the lobby wall. You stand in the lobby sometimes and try to remember why you ironed your uniform twice before your first academy day. You remember the weight of the badge. You can't quite remember what it meant. The reports on your desk now are abstract. Trends, projections, incident rates, community satisfaction indexes. Numbers that represent things that happen to real people in real places. But at this altitude, they don't feel real. They feel like weather data. You make decisions that move hundreds of people. You sign off on policies that shape how this city is policed for the next decade. You sit in federal briefings about organized crime and counterterrorism, and you are calm in all of them. You're always calm. You don't know when that happened. The officer-involved shooting from 2 years ago is still in federal review. The officer was cleared internally. The family sued. The suit is ongoing. You know every detail of that case by heart, every frame of footage, every line of testimony, and when journalists ask you about it, you say, the process must be allowed to complete, in a voice that reveals nothing. You're not hiding guilt. You genuinely don't know what the right answer is anymore. That's the thing they don't tell you. At the top of this system, you have enormous power and almost no certainty. Every decision you make is made with incomplete information under political pressure with real consequences you won't see directly. You make the best call you can with what you have. Sometimes that's good enough. Sometimes it isn't. You don't know which is which until much later. And sometimes, not even then. There is a dinner, an award, your name on a conference room. The city council passes a resolution commending your leadership. You stand at a podium and the room applauds, and you look out at 400 faces, and you feel completely, utterly alone. Not unhappy, just alone. You've been alone at this altitude for a while. You stop noticing exactly when.
The cycle. You're in the lobby when the new recruit class arrives. 41 of them this year. They come through the main entrance in 2 quiet lines. Pressed uniforms, clean shoes. They're looking at everything. The seal on the wall, the photo gallery of previous chiefs, the trophy case by the elevator. One of them looks up and sees you standing there in your uniform with the chief's stars on your collar,
and he straightens automatically, goes slightly rigid, the instinct already installed. You recognize the look. You wore that look. You nod at him, not warmly, not coldly, professionally. He nods back and looks away quickly, like he's afraid he made a mistake just by meeting your eyes. He hasn't made a mistake. He just doesn't know the rules yet. He will. Somewhere in his chest right now, there is something clean, ambition or idealism, or just a simple need to be part of something that matters. It's the same thing you carried through that door a long time ago, before the first lesson, before the first compromise, before the first report you shaped, and the first silence you kept, and the first morning you woke at 3 a.m. with the scenarios already running. He doesn't know what this place will ask of him. He doesn't know how much he'll give. He doesn't know what it costs to climb this far, or what you leave behind on every rung, or what waits at the top. Not power, not triumph, just a quiet room and a desk and a phone that never stops, and a version of yourself you no longer fully recognize. He thinks he understands the system. He doesn't, but he will. The doors close behind him. The cycle continues.